Is the Sony ZV-1 the best self-tape camera available right now? It just might be. Let's take a closer look. What's up, my fellow actors? Welcome to the Acting Career Center, here to help you learn the skills you need to break into the film and television industry. My name is Kurt Yu. Thank you so much for spending some time here with me today. If it's your first time here, make sure to subscribe to this channel to get more videos on acting, auditioning, and career advice. And if you haven't already downloaded my free 10-step audition preparation guide yet, you can get it from that link right up there. I call it my audition cheat sheet. It's my own 10-step audition preparation process that has helped me book over 50 movies and television shows. So if you want to download that for free, you can get it from that link right up there. Okay, today we are talking about my new Sony ZV-1 self-tape camera. Now, this is not a sponsored video, but I just really love the camera, and I will put a link to it down in the description below. But before we talk about any of this, I want to preface everything by saying that I am a big proponent of using what you already have. I don't think anybody needs to go and buy a self-tape camera, especially when we all have one of these in our pockets. Most newer phones these days have great HD cameras, and I know so many of my actor friends that have booked roles in movies and TV shows and commercials using auditions that they self-tape with their phone. So if you don't have the budget for it, then you absolutely do not have to go buy a separate camera for self-taping. But then people might ask, well, Kurt, if you're saying that, then why aren't you using your phone for self-taping? Why are you buying a separate camera? So let me tell you the reasoning behind why I like to use a dedicated self-tape camera. And that is that I just like the convenience of having that separate camera. For example, my phone is typically in my pocket all day, and if I were to get an audition and I needed to go tape it, and my camera that I use as my phone, well, I have to mount it to the tripod, I have to get everything set up and angled right. If I have an external microphone, I need to plug the microphone in and get that all set up correctly, and it just takes a little bit extra time. It's an entire process just to get started. Whereas when I have a separate dedicated self-tape camera, that's just ready to go 24/7. The only reason that I have this off of my tripod right now is because I'm filming this video. Otherwise, it's just sitting on top of my tripod 24/7, so that when I do have an audition, I just walk into the room, turn it on, and I'm ready to go. The microphone's already plugged in, it's already dialed in to the right settings for my self-taping, and there's no additional setup that I have to do. And that is convenient for me and worth it to me to have something like that, because I audition quite a bit. Over 100 auditions, sometimes 150 auditions per year, and saving that additional time every single time when I have an audition is absolutely worth it to have a separate dedicated camera. So this video is not meant to pressure you into going out and buying a separate self-tape camera, but if you are someone who is already looking or already has the budget for it and you're just trying to decide which camera to buy, then let's talk about it. I think the Sony ZV-1 is a great option. So I recently bought the Sony ZV-1 after using my previous self-tape camera, the Canon 80D, for almost 8 years, and I really love that camera for self-taping. But I've seen some other people use the Sony ZV-1, so I decided to buy it and try it out for myself. If I didn't like it, I was just going to return it. But so far, so good. I really do like the camera. Now, this wasn't a new discovery by me. This camera's actually been out for about 3 years, and I know a lot of other actors who've already been using it for their self-tapes for quite a while now. I'm kind of late to the party, actually, but I'm glad that I jumped on board, because after purchasing it and after using this for the past month or so, I'm really liking it, and I'm actually going to make the switch and switch over to the Sony ZV-1 as my dedicated self-taping camera from here on out. So let's talk about some of the features that actually make this camera really, really good for self-taping. First and foremost, the video quality on the Sony ZV-1 is absolutely superb. I certainly would not have considered switching to this camera if the video quality wasn't as good or better than my previous camera. I've even tested other cameras in the past where the video quality was worse than my smartphone, and that is not the case here. The video quality here is fantastic. It actually does shoot 4K video, but I don't even bother with that with my self-tape auditions. I shoot all my self-tapes at 1080p because I think that quality is plenty good enough, plus it keeps the file sizes smaller, so it makes it easier with editing and all the post-production. So if you're looking for a camera with really sharp video, then you can't go wrong with the Sony ZV-1. One of the most important features that I think everyone should look for in a self-tape camera is the autofocus, because you definitely don't want the camera to lose focus on you while you're doing your self-tape audition. For example, if you're moving around in the frame and then it goes out of focus for a second and then goes back into focus when it finds you again, that's super distracting. It's not great for your self-tapes. So having a great autofocus system on a camera is really, really important, and the Sony ZV-1 has a great one. My old camera actually did it really well already. It had face detection autofocus. That means if they saw a face in the frame, it would lock onto that face and focus on that face the entire time, which is perfect for self-tape auditions because we are in the frame the entire time, right? But the Sony ZV-1 actually takes it a step higher and does eye detection autofocus. So it focuses on an eyeball and locks that focus in frame the entire time. Now, eye detection autofocus is not new. It has been around in other cameras before, but not a camera of this price point. So many eye detection autofocus cameras are in the thousands of dollars. So to have eye detection autofocus on a camera that is inexpensive like this is fantastic. All right, I just want you to notice here on the screen that little white box that's on my eyeball. That shows that the ZV-1 has locked its autofocus on my eye. So no matter how I move around, it maintains the focus the entire time. Again, regardless of what camera that you buy for self-taping, make sure that it has a good autofocus system. And I can tell you right now, the Sony ZV-1 does it really, really well. Now, we've already talked about video quality, but the audio quality on the Sony ZV-1 is actually really good too. And not just when you plug in an external microphone. The onboard microphone on the camera is already pretty good. Most fancier cameras don't have great onboard microphones. It might be like one or two little holes in the front of the camera. They're not designed for that. They're designed to have a professional camera plugged into it so that you could get better quality. But the Sony ZV-1 actually put a good quality microphone right on top of it. I don't know if you can see it here, but that little mesh section on the top of the camera, that whole thing is a microphone. So it captures pretty good quality straight out of the camera. But that doesn't mean you can't use an external microphone. The great thing about the Sony ZV-1 is it does have an external microphone jack. So if you wanted to use an external microphone, you could plug one in and either mount it to the top of the camera or put it onto a microphone stand. The other feature that I think is really essential to have for a self-tape camera is to have a flip-out screen. This is really important when you are self-taping and you want to make sure that you can see your framing, make sure your head's not getting cut off, make sure you're standing in the center, all of those things. Because the camera that I'm using right now to record this YouTube video is my Sony a7 III. It's actually a camera that costs 3 times as much as the Sony ZV-1, but its screen doesn't flip out, so I can't monitor it when I'm self-taping. So I don't actually like to use this expensive camera for my self-tapes because I can't monitor my own self-tape video. So this is really important to have a flip-out screen for your self-tapes. And I've seen other Sony cameras where the screen flips up instead of out. I don't love the flip up screen because like we showed earlier, if you wanted to mount a microphone to the top of the camera, now you're blocking some of that screen. So I think the flip out works a lot better, and I've been loving this feature on the Sony ZV-1. Another great feature is the built-in zoom lens of the Sony ZV-1. Now, this is not an interchangeable lens camera, meaning I can't take this lens off and put on a different lens. It has a fixed lens, but the great thing about it is that it's not a fixed focal length lens, meaning that it can zoom in and zoom out. So you can see how the camera lens is zooming like that. The reason why this is really useful is that I can get a shoulders to head self-tape framing, and I can get a wide full body shot framing with the same camera in the same position, meaning I don't have to physically move the camera forward and back to get the wider shot and the close-up shot. I can leave the camera in the same spot and zoom in when I need the close-up framing and zoom out when I need to get that full body shot. It makes it super easy. And again, like I said in the beginning, I'm all about that convenience and not having to do extra work to get the things that I need. And the last reason on my list of why I think the Sony ZV-1 is a great self-tape camera, and this is the reason why I made the switch, is how compact and small this camera is. I mean, look at the size difference between my old Canon 80D self-tape camera and my new Sony ZV-1. I mean, this camera can literally fit into my pocket. This absolutely cannot. In fact, when I used to travel, I would never bring my self-tape camera because this took way too much room in my bag. But this takes barely any room, so I'm much more inclined to bring this with me anytime that I travel. So, and plus, I love having a dedicated camera when I travel where I could use it to take pictures and video beyond just using my phone. So the compact nature of this camera is so good for a self-tape camera, because if you do travel a lot and you want to bring your self-tape camera with you, something like this is going to be much easier to bring along. Okay, so we just talked about all of these cool features that make the Sony ZV-1 a great self-tape camera, but I also want to mention a couple features that this camera has that are great that aren't specifically about self-taping. One is that the Sony ZV-1 can shoot vertical video natively. What that means is that the camera recognizes that it's vertical video. A lot of older cameras, if you shoot it vertically, you have to first take it into editing software and then rotate it, because when you first put it on your computer, it's horizontal and it looks like horizontal video, and you have to first rotate it and make it vertical. Whereas the Sony ZV-1, when you rotate the camera recognizes that it has been rotated and will save the video as a vertical video, so you can immediately upload it to Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Or even when you put it into your editing software, you don't have to do that extra step of rotating it first. Everything is already saved as vertical, so I think that's a really cool feature of the Sony ZV-1. Another awesome feature is that the Sony ZV-1 can be used as a webcam right out of the box. You could plug it into your computer and your computer will recognize a camera, and you could immediately use it as a webcam without any additional software needed. So in your next Zoom meeting, you can impress the heck out of everybody having a really nice camera on you using your ZV-1 as your webcam. And finally, Sony has a free mobile app that you can download so that you can remotely control your camera via your phone. Now, this doesn't really come into play when you're self-taping because the camera's right there. You walk 2 feet to turn it on and start recording. But if you were filming something else and the camera was further away and you wanted to line up a shot, you could be pretty far away from your camera, look at the video image on your phone to see how the framing is, and once that's set up, you can hit record right on your phone and start recording on your camera, and then once it's all done, you can hit record again and stop recording, which makes it really, really easy. Now, this so far has been a pretty glowing review of the Sony ZV-1, and it is a fantastic camera, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have its issues, and the two biggest issues that I have with this camera can be fixed. So let me talk about what they are. The biggest one, in my opinion, is this mounting hole at the bottom of the camera. You see this hole right there? That's where the screw goes for the mounting plate when you put it onto a tripod. So most tripods come with a mounting plate like this, and when you screw this plate onto the Sony ZV-1, the problem is now that it blocks the door down here, which accesses the battery and the memory card. So in order to get to the battery and get to the memory card, I have to take this off, unscrew it. It takes all this extra time, and then now I can open this up and finally swap out my battery and put it back in, or swap out my memory card and put it back in, which is a pretty common thing that needs to be done with a camera. But unfortunately, when you have this battery door or this tripod plate attached, I can't access the battery door, which makes it really, really difficult. But there is a fix for it, and that is this L bracket. You can buy one of these L brackets off Amazon. They're pretty inexpensive, but the way that this works is that it attaches to the camera and allows you to mount this tripod plate in a different spot. So let me attach it real quick and I'll show you. Okay, I've just mounted the L bracket onto the camera, which was just one screw, really easy to attach. But now you can see at the bottom of the camera, I still have access to this battery door, and it opens right up, and I could take out the battery or the memory card. But the great thing now is that you see all these extra holes right down here, right? Which is where I can mount this mounting plate and then still have access to that battery door. So let me put the mounting plate back on. And now we've put the mounting plate off to the side, so I can put this now onto a tripod, right? But still have access to this battery door and the memory card without having to take this mounting plate off every single time. So this is a fantastic accessory, this L bracket, which allows you to access the memory card and the battery without having to unscrew this and screw this on every single time. Makes things so much easier. Now, another downside of the Sony ZV-1, which I think comes with the territory of it being such a small compact camera, is that it has a small battery and therefore the battery doesn't last very long. So I think it's really important to pick up some spare batteries. I got 3 of these off of Amazon for really cheap, and they come with a battery charger. So anytime I swap out a battery from the ZV-1, I stick it right onto the charger so that I always have a fresh battery, so that anytime I'm recording something, if the battery does run out, I can just quickly do a battery switch and get right back to recording. But having some spare batteries is really going to be important, because you don't want to be caught with a dead battery and have to wait for it to charge before you could start recording again. All right, that's everything I have to say about my new Sony ZV-1. I'm really loving this camera for self-taping. This is not a sponsored video. I just really like the camera itself. Again, I'll put a link to everything down in the description below, to the camera, to the L bracket, to the batteries, and everything like that. If you have any questions about it, feel free to type them down in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and I hope to see you on set one day.